Good morning friends, have a nice day. Now we are going to discuss about the refraction matrix, the second process when a light ray passes through a medium. Here, for obtaining the matrix of refraction, we are considering a process of refraction along a spherical surface, or a refraction on a spherical surface. Here we are considering a convex spherical surface of radius of curvature r and a light ray of AB, or a light ray is incident on this spherical refracting surface. Now I am choosing the light ray is originating from a point A of a medium having refractive index value mu1, and the refractive index of the spherical refracting medium is mu2. Now the light ray originating from point A and incident on the spherical refracting surface at point B, and the refraction takes place, and then a light ray goes to some point C inside this spherical refracting medium of value of refractive index mu1 and mu2. Now here the process of refraction is taking place at point B. Here this I am denoting this AB and BC are the light rays, and this green line represents the normal at point B. Here R is the radius of curvature of this spherical refracting surface, and D is the center of curvature. So any line originating from the center of curvature of any spherical refracting surface and meets the point of refraction, or meets at any point in the inside the spherical refracting surface, will be the normal at that particular point. So here I am considering the point B as the point of refraction on this spherical surface. So this line BD represents the normal through the point B. So here I can see that the incident light ray and the normal makes an angle I. This is the angle of incident. Similarly, the refracted light ray and the normal makes an angle R, which is the angle of refraction. So I is the incident angle, and R is the refraction angle. Now here this line represents the z-axis of this system, and also it is the optical axis of this optical system. So Z is optical axis. Now this dotted blue line is a parallel line of this optical axis. So this line can be considered as the optical axis itself at point B, or this dotted blue line represents the optical axis through the point B. Now this incident light ray makes an angle alpha 1 with this optical axis. So this alpha 1 is the angle made by this incident light ray with respect to optical axis. Similarly, alpha 2 is the angle made by the refracted light ray with respect to the optical axis. Now this optical axis and this normal at point B makes an angle phi. This is the angle phi. Now for obtaining the matrix of refraction, I have to represent these points with respect to our specified coordinates. We have the coordinates of any point on a light ray in an optical system is represented by two quantities. One is the vertical distance from the optical axis, and other is the angle made by the light ray at points from or with respect to the optical axis. So here this vertical distance and this angle creates the coordinates of point B. Here I am already discussed that this point B is the point of refraction. So I have to consider the point where the process of refraction takes place. So I am considering the point B. B. So just before this point B, I have the incident light ray, and the coordinates of the point or coordinates of light ray at just before the point B is represented by the distance x1 as well as the angle made alpha 1. Here generally we are representing this alpha 1 in terms of optical direction cosine. So this optical direction cosine is nothing but the refractive index times this sine of this alpha 1. We have already discussed this term in the previous video, that is the process of our translational matrix. So I can represent this coordinate in terms of x1 and lambda 1, where lambda 1 is nothing but mu times or refractive index into sine of alpha 1, sorry, mu 1 into sine of alpha 1, because at just before this point B, the point is in the first medium, or this light ray is the incident light ray, or this light ray is going through the first medium. So the refractive index is mu 1. So lambda 1 is mu 1 into sine alpha 1. Similarly, at a point just after B, the coordinates are x2 and alpha 2, where alpha 2 is the angle made by the refracted light ray with respect to optical axis. So a point just after B represents a point on the refracted light ray, so we have to consider this alpha 2. Similarly, on the as we discussed earlier, this can be represented as x2 lambda 2, where lambda 2 is nothing but mu 2 times sine alpha 2. Now here we are dealing with the process of refraction. The process of refraction takes place at a single point. Now here it is B. So at the process of refraction, the coordinates of this point B have to be obtained. Now when a refraction process takes place, we can see that since takes place at a single point in this refracting surface, the optical distance or the vertical distance from the optical axis will remain constant. Vertical distance remains constant. But before and after the process of refraction, the direction of this light ray changes. So obviously the optical angle or angle made by the light ray with respect to this optical axis definitely changes. So here when the process of refraction takes place, the vertical distance remains constant and the optical direction cosine will changes. Optical direction cosine changes. So we can see that since the vertical distance remains constant before and after the process of refraction, we can write it as x2 will be equal to x1, and here since the optical direction cosine changes, we can write it as lambda 2 is not equal to lambda 1. Now we have that the optical law which represents the point of the process of refraction is nothing but Snell's law. According to Snell's law, we can write it as mu 1 into sine of the angle of incident will be equal to mu 2 into sine of the angle of refraction, or mu 2 divided by mu 1 is equal to sine I by sine R. Now from this figure we can see that this I and R is represented by two angles. Before that, since we are considering paraxial light rays, that means this incident angle and refraction angle are very much smaller. I and R are very much small. I comma R is small angle. So sine of the angle I is approximately equal to I itself, and also sine of the angle r is approximately equal to r itself. So I can write it as mu1 into I will be equal to mu2 into r. Now from this figure we can see that this angle I is made by two angles, which is alpha 1 plus phi, where phi is the angle made by this optical axis with respect to this normal. Similarly, the angle R is nothing but alpha 2 plus phi. Since this angle is phi, this angle is just opposite to the first angle, so these two angles are equal. So I can write it as I is equal to alpha 1 plus phi, and similarly R is equal to alpha 2 plus phi. Substituting these values of I and R in this first equation, let us mark as this equation 1, I can write it as mu1 into alpha 1 plus phi will be equal to mu2 into alpha 2 plus phi. Now I am just expanding these terms. Mu1 times alpha 1 plus mu1 times phi is equal to mu2 times alpha 2 plus mu2 times phi, or simply mu2 alpha 2 is mu1 alpha 1 plus phi into mu1 minus mu2. Just I am taking a negative outside, mu1 alpha 1 minus phi into mu2 minus mu1. Again, we are observing from this figure, we can see that since these two lines, this dotted blue line represent the optical axis itself, again this is also the optical axis, so these two lines are parallel lines. So these two parallel lines are intersected by by a line that is nothing but the axis of the or a radius of curvature of this spherical surface. So this radius of curvature just intersecting two parallel lines. So if this angle is phi, we can simply write this as this angle will also equal to phi. That is nothing but, let I am considering this angle is phi and dropping a perpendicular from this point, so this angle will be 90, and similarly so this angle will be 90 minus phi. If this angle is 90 minus phi, this optical axis and this perpendicular makes a 90 degree angle, so this angle will be 90 minus phi. If it is phi, this is 90 degree, and this angle I am just representing at theta, so this theta will be equal to 90 minus phi. Now again, since these two angles makes a 90 degree angle, this is optical axis and this is a perpendicular drawn from at point B, so this is a right angle. So this angle phi will be equal to, this angle will makes 90 minus theta, that is nothing but 90 minus phi, which will be equal to 90 minus 90 plus phi is equal to phi itself. So I am just proving these two angles are equal, so this angle is phi itself. If this angle makes is phi, then I can write it as this angle phi is nothing but phi is equal to arc by radius. That means if this angle is very much small, I can write it as this is arc by radius. So this arc divided by this radius will makes the angle phi. So if this angle phi is very much small, phi tending to 0, this arc can be approximately equal to the vertical distance to this point B. So it is nothing but x1, which is equal to x2, and this radius is nothing but the radius of curvature. So phi can be written as x1 divided by r or x2 divided by r. Let us take this x1 divided by r itself. So phi is equal to x1 divided by r. This can be represented in a very different manner. That means this angle is, when this angle is phi, I can write the tan theta. Tan theta is nothing but opposite side divided by adjacent side. So if I am dropping this perpendicular from point B to this point, and this angle phi is very much small, this tan phi will be equal to x1 divided by r. For small angle phi, tan phi will be approximately equal to phi itself. So phi is nothing but x1 divided by r itself. Now I am substituting the value of phi in this equation. Let it be equation number 2. I can write it as mu2 alpha 2 is mu1 alpha 1 minus x1 divided by r into mu2 minus mu1, or mu1 alpha 1 minus x1 into mu2 minus mu1 divided by r. Okay. Now I am introducing a new term, that is nothing but I am denoting that P, which is equal to mu2 minus mu1 divided by r, and is called power of the refracting surface. Power of refracting surface. So again, this mu2 alpha 2 is nothing but lambda 2, which is the optical direction cosine we have already discussed. For small angle alpha 1 and alpha 2, sine of this angle will be equal to the angle itself. So mu2 alpha 2 is lambda 2, which is equal to mu1 alpha 1 is lambda 1 minus, substituting this value mu2 minus mu1 divided by r with P into x1. This power of refracting surface is nothing but the ability of this refracting surface for making the refraction more powerful. So we have to see that, or we have to note that this power is nothing but the refractive index of the second medium minus the refractive index of the first medium divided by the radius of curvature of the refracting surface. mu2 is the refractive index of second medium, mu1 is the refractive index of first medium, and r is the radius of curvature of the refracting surface. So lambda 2 can be represented as lambda 1 minus px. We have already seen that since the refraction is taking place at single point, so x2 will be equal to x1 itself. So I can write it as x1 plus 0 lambda 1. Now if I am considered at initial, that is x1 and lambda 1 is the initial coordinate just before the refraction, and x2 and lambda 2 is the final coordinate just after the refraction. So these two coordinates can be represented by using a matrix method, that is lambda 2 and x2, which is a column matrix, which can be obtained by operating an arbitrary matrix. Let I am taking it as A, B, C, D into the initial coordinate lambda 1 and x1. If this matrix, this square matrix, is operated on the coordinates of point just before the refraction, I can obtain the point or coordinates of the point just after the refraction, and so this operation takes place is nothing but the process of refraction. So this matrix is represented as refraction matrix. If I am multiplying these matrices, I can see that I will obtain A lambda 1 plus B x1 and C lambda 1 plus D x1, which will be a column matrix, and in the left hand side is nothing but lambda 2 and x2. So if these two matrices are equal, I can write it as lambda 2 will be equal to A lambda 1 plus Bx1, and x2 will be equal to C lambda 1 plus Dx1. Let it be equation number 3. This is the obtained expression from the diagram. I am denoting this equation number 4. So I am comparing equation number 3 and 4. I can see that the left hand sides are equal, and so obviously the right hand side should be equal. For making this right hand sides equal, I have to choose the coefficients of lambda 1 and x1 should be equal. So here, for making this expression A lambda 1 plus Bx1 is equal to lambda 1 minus Px1, I have to choose A is equal to 1 and B is equal to minus P. Similarly, to make C lambda 1 plus Dx1 is equal to 0 lambda 1 plus x1, C should be equal to 0 and D should be equal to 1. Now I am substituting these values of A, B, C and D in this matrix. I can write it as, it will be equal to A is equal to 1, B is equal to minus P, and C is equal to 0 and D is equal to 1. So it is the matrix representing the process of refraction, and it is called refraction matrix. The properties of this refraction matrix is nothing but that it is a 2 by 2 square matrix. It is a 2 by 2 square matrix, and also determinant of this refraction matrix is nothing but equal to 1. These two are the properties of refraction matrix. Here this P is nothing but the power of refracting surface. So if we are dealing with more than one refracting surfaces, in a case which is discussed in the process of a lens, so there will be a first refraction and second refraction. So we can simply represent this power of refracting surface as P1 and P2. Here I am dealing with only one refracting surface, so I am representing this as P itself. If we have more than one refracting surface, we can deal each and every refraction matrices with respect to the power of respected refracting surfaces as P1 and P2. So we have obtained the refraction matrix. Thank you.